Tonight,
Jimmy Carter's enduring attribute, character, character, character.
a final farewell to the 39th President of the United States. Plus, deadly wildfires devastate Los Angeles.
It's been definitely a rough ride for the community over the past few days.
The latest on the Southern California fire containment efforts, and why Greenland is becoming a lightning rod for American politicians. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
A president, humanitarian, and humble man of faith. Jimmy Carter, America's 39th president, has been laid to rest. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder.
And good evening from Washington. I'm John Jessup. Today, President Joe Biden, along with every other living former president, paid their respects at the state funeral of former President Jimmy Carter at the Washington National Cathedral.
In addition to his life and legacy, they honored Carter's service to God, America, and the world. CBN News White House correspondent Kelly Wright joins us now with a closer look. Kelly?
Jenna and John, this funeral felt more like a celebration of Jimmy Carter's life, his journey of faith. From being a child growing up on his father's peanut farm in Plains, Georgia, to becoming the President of the United States, and then a Nobel Prize recipient for his humanitarian service and positive impact.
I am the resurrection.
As the 39th president's flag-draped coffin was brought into the National Cathedral, his close friend Andrew Young delivered the opening scripture. In life, Jimmy Carter worked to help people throughout the world, seeking to cure diseases, help the poor, and ending racial and political divisions here at home. He believed in bringing all people together. That was in evidence today as Presidents Barack Obama and Donald Trump sat side by side, talking together as they awaited the funeral service. In delivering the eulogy, President Biden described Carter as a man of character.
Jimmy Carter's friendship taught me, and through his life taught me, the strength of character is more than title or the power we hold. It's the strength to understand that everyone should be treated with dignity, respect, that everyone, and I mean everyone, deserves an even shot.
Carter's grandsons eloquently shared precious memories of not only seeing him serve the world, but serving them as a grandfather who showered them with love and guidance.
Is the growing chasm between the richest and poorest people on earth. He worshiped the Prince of Peace.
His life was a testament to the goodness of God.
And in summary of a life well lived, President Biden said America is a journey of faith, and Jimmy Carter embodied that as a patriot. As his grandson Joshua stated, Carter was a man who lived by the fruit of the Holy Spirit. He acted justly, loved mercy, and walked humbly before his God. John, Jenna.
All right, thank you, Kelly. And for more, we are joined by Mark Caleb Smith, Director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. Mark, welcome. So I'd like to just start today with your overall thoughts on what we saw today and the remembrance and honoring of our 39th president.
Yeah, it's always a historical moment when we lay a former president to rest and all the pomp and circumstance that goes with that. But it's also, I think, a good reflection of America itself when you see all the former presidents gathered together, when we sort of put aside our polarization and our bickering and focus on something a little bit bigger than ourselves. And so I think all very heartfelt and certainly very reflective of Jimmy Carter himself.
It was a moving ceremony. You know, he was a man of faith, a humanitarian, and really exhibited humility until his dying day. Although a former president, much was made about how Jimmy Carter did not amass a lot of material wealth.
Yeah.
The theme of the service today, Mark, as you well know, was on his integrity of character. If you could, talk about that and how that factored into who he was as a man.
No question about it. I think regardless of what you think of Jimmy Carter's politics, when it comes to his faith, he was a man of genuine faith. And When you look at his post-presidency, I think it reveals itself really well. Former presidents can go amass an awful lot of wealth. They can give a bunch of speeches. They can sit on a lot of corporate boards. They can set up organizations that collect money. They can turn themselves into multi-millionaires many times over. And we've seen former presidents do that. Jimmy Carter, that really wasn't how he was motivated, and his life showed that. I mean, he lived in his relatively simple, plain house in Plains, Georgia for the rest of his life, continued to teach Sunday school every Sunday, and really just lived the life of a servant. And so certainly not always perfect, not someone I always agreed with for sure, but a man of great faith, and I think that showed itself.
Yeah, to your point, he was consequential and even controversial, Mark, in office. How do you think history will remember Jimmy Carter politically?
Yeah, I think politically it's a tough record to sell, frankly. I mean, he struggled as president of the United States, and it wasn't all his fault, but he walked into a really different circumstance where sort of the New Deal coalition was floundering. He was an outsider from Georgia who really didn't care much for Washington politics, and the country really wanted new answers to different questions, and Carter just wasn't that guy. And so he set the stage for Ronald Reagan, who came later, and sort of a realignment of our political parties, and I think Carter just kind of got caught in the middle of that. But he also had some decisions that he made while president that just frankly didn't work well. Whether we're talking about rescuing hostages in Iran or dealing with out-of-control inflation, he didn't always rise to the moment when he had to. And so it wasn't because of effort, it wasn't because of his integrity or lack of integrity. It's just sometimes he made different choices than maybe should have been made. So I think history will probably still reflect that way, but his post-presidential life tells a different story.
Mark, in an interview Kelly Wright did with Carter's pastor, Pastor Loudon, we heard that he didn't hold grudges and really believed in bringing people together, becoming close even with his former rival President Ford. We saw glimmers of that today, and even what happened to be a moment of what appeared to be levity between former President Obama and President-elect Trump. A final thought on that in the few seconds we have left.
You know, I wish more of our politicians, current and past, would do more public appearances and show that they can be close and they can be friends and they can work together to solve our problems. To me, the more that American citizens see that, the better.
Yeah, it was a nice moment to see that moment of what looked to be a very friendly exchange between Obama and Trump.
Our producer Shoshana and I were talking about, to be a fly on the shoulder to hear the conversation, to see what made Obama chuckle. Mark Caleb Smith with Cedarville University, thank you so much for offering your reflections today.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Well, out west, relentless fires continue spreading across Southern California. Crews trying to control the flames from the air and the ground, but with little success.
That's right. New outbreaks spreading farther downstate, forcing close to 200,000 evacuations. CBN Washington correspondent Michelle London joins us now with the stories of those personally affected by the fires. Michelle.
Drew Sams is senior pastor of LA's Bel Air Presbyterian Church, about a mile away from multiple fires. As a third-generation Angelino who grew up in Pasadena, the impact hits close to home in many ways. He talked with me moments before heading out to check on the homes of his parents and sister.
126, go ahead. That's 126 right here.
Emotion overwhelmed Reverend Sams as he watched flames in this Altadena neighborhood surround his sister's home. A day after she and Sam's parents evacuated the scene, a friend sent him the video.
I was moved to tears. He shared a video of them, getting out and seeing their cars completely charred in their front yard or their backyard, and neighbors charred. As of last night, their home was one of only 3 that was standing on their block.
The Eaton fire burned close to 11,000 acres and many structures in Altadena and Pasadena. Sam says the past 48 hours have taken its toll, forcing him to lean strongly on his faith.
Our family's been impacted, and navigating all of that emotionally, of course, bringing it before a God who is present and good and faithful, rather than stuffing those emotions.
Family members aren't the only ones close to his heart. He's been in constant contact with his Bel Air church congregation, who come from all over Los Angeles, including emergency workers.
I know of 7 homes that have been lost by our congregants. Hundreds have been evacuated, uncertain if their homes have made it.
LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley says every fire is under an active investigation. She also challenged Los Angeles residents to stay informed, be prepared to evacuate,
follow all orders from authorities and stay away from impacted areas so firefighters and first responders can get to their destinations as quickly as possible. Reverend Sam says he's in touch with Crowley and CBN's Operation Blessing as he seeks to open his church as a refuge for evacuees.
But the initial thought is to have our campus as a hub of operations, perhaps to have large trucks with donations being staged there.
As he and others open doors for community members, Sam says now is the time to reflect Christ and meet their immediate needs.
And this is where you go to your neighbors and bring the shovel and go through the rubble with them and just be that faithful presence. And I love that we have a God who enters into the fire with us.
AccuWeather estimates current total damage and economic loss from these wildfires ranging between $52 and $57 billion. During today's news conference, LA County Sheriff Robert Luna says they've identified at least 20 people caught looting affected properties. He warned those caught in areas they don't live in will be subject to arrest. John, Jenna.
All right, Levin, thank you very much. Well, from Greenland to the Panama Canal, is the future president looking to expand through land grabs? Faith Nation looks into it next.
Welcome back. The Senate is moving forward on a House-passed immigration bill known as the Laken-Riley Act, named after a Georgia college student murdered by an illegal immigrant last year. The measure calls for the detainment of migrants who have been arrested for theft and allows state attorneys general to sue to enforce the law. Enough Democrats joined with Republicans today to open debate on the measure.
Mr. President, something unexpected is happening in the early days of this new Congress, right here in the Senate, and that is we are seeing some bipartisanship. Republicans and a number of Democrats have now agreed that violent criminals who have entered our country illegally and are a threat to the safety and the security of the American people shouldn't be here. We need to do something about it. And now we need time for the Democrats to prove that they really do want to work with us.
Well, Senate Democrats have already signaled they will add amendments to the bill, including provisions for dreamers.
Recent rhetoric from President-elect Trump is raising questions about the future of Greenland and the Panama Canal. The soon-to-be commander-in-chief says he wants to acquire both and refuses to rule out using military force to make his vision a reality. Trump says it's needed for U.S. economic security. While lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have expressed some support for the idea, others are saying it's a distraction.
House Democrats believe that we are not sent to Washington to invade Greenland, rename the Gulf of Mexico, or seize the Panama Canal by force. What about the November presidential election had anything to do with invading Greenland or seizing it by force? I'm confused by the obsession around these comments.
And both Germany and France have warned against the idea of the U.S. taking over Greenland.
And with that, let's bring in Michael O'Hanlon. He is the Senior Fellow and Director of Research and Foreign Policy at the Brookings Institution. Michael, welcome to you. So Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. acquiring Greenland will never happen, and it's simply fantastical and squanders valuable time on subjects that we could really be talking about. So how do you view all of this? Is it just Trump rhetoric?
Okay, it looks like we might have lost Michael.
Lost you.
Nope. Michael, can you hear us?
I hear Jenna.
Okay.
I hear Jenna, but I lost the question.
Yeah, Michael, your thoughts on Trump's rhetoric here and wanting to take over Greenland and the Panama Canal?
Well, I think the ideas about Greenland and Canada are frankly silly at best. So let me focus on what I think is a more serious issue where I hope the president is actually focused, which is Panama. Because, in fact, China has been encroaching on much of the Western Hemisphere with its economic influence and therefore potentially its surveillance and intelligence capabilities. And I think President-elect Trump is right to focus on the importance of the Panama Canal for the United States. It may not be absolutely vital, but it's important, and pushback there makes sense. On the other hand, he really needs to give up on these, probably fantastical and even humorous ideas about Canada and Greenland, which really just divide us from our allies and make his incoming administration seem less serious. So I hope he can move beyond that pretty quickly. The Panama question, however, is a little bit more legitimate.
Yeah. How do you think, the rest of the world is reading this? Is Trump kind of trolling these countries? Is he trying to send a message to other world leaders and by exerting American strength? How do you read that? How do you think other world leaders are seeing this, Michael?
That's a great question. It's hard enough to read Trump, and trying to read other people's reactions to Trump is even harder. I think that there are a lot of people who are nervous, but who also have hoped that after his first term, you have to separate some of the more bombastic rhetoric from the reality of policy, and you don't immediately take seriously every single thing he says, and you play it out and see where it goes. So, for example, with Denmark and Greenland, when President Trump says he wouldn't rule out military coercion, I hope very much that he sees that as a negotiating throwaway line. It would be a crime against the NATO alliance and American interests and the rule of law if he was serious about it. So let's see if he's serious. I think most people are sort of in a wait and see mode, just like I am, just like many of us are.
Yeah, just about a minute left, Michael. But if you were advising the Trump administration on foreign policy, what would you like to see this administration focus on?
Well, where I do like President Trump's instincts especially is in regard to Ukraine and Russia, where I think President Trump is right that the most important American interest, and frankly, the most important Ukrainian, Russian, and European interest, is to end the fighting as soon as possible. That matters more than where the border is ultimately drawn. So I hope that President Trump will try to translate that good instinct into an actual strategy for making it happen. We saw in his first term that he had sometimes good instincts, and some of them turned into good policy, like on China and being tougher. Others didn't really play out because he lost interest and focus, like on North Korea and his desire to denuclearize. So I hope on Ukraine he can actually empower his negotiators to develop a serious strategy that creates some leverage with both parties. I hope that's the case. We haven't yet seen enough to know if that will be the reality.
Yeah, we'll see. Less than 2 weeks until President-elect Trump takes office. All right, Michael O'Hanlon, thank you for joining us. Great to see you.
Hope he's traveling safely. Well, coming up, Christians from every continent coming together to call on God. Details of upcoming event to gather the global church. Next. Welcome back. Think of it as a foretaste of heaven. Christians from every single part of the world joining together for 25 hours of prayer and worship.
Well, it's about to happen. It's all part of an event called Gather 25. Charlene Aaron recently spoke with visionary and host Jenny Allen about her hopes for the unprecedented experience.
If we knew he was coming and coming soon, what would we do?
During an appearance on CBN's Prayer Link, Allen shared her motivation for the upcoming Gather 25, a dream from a decade ago about the possible return of Jesus within 10 years.
Nobody knows the hour or the day, but I think all of us can agree it feels like it could be the season. And so when I dreamed that, it wasn't good news. And part of the reason it wasn't good news is that so many people still have not heard the gospel. And so I thought when I woke up, we should gather the entire global church and we should talk about being on mission together.
One moving closer to reality for the first time, as Christians from each denomination and continent join together for prayer, worship, and repentance.
So we're going live from 7 different locations on every continent in the world, and we are telling the stories of the global church. And so we're going to share with everyone, this is what God is doing today in the world. And so anyone can be a part. They can tune in and watch from their home, from their church. We're hoping for lots of different small events or large events that are happening all over the world.
Allen, a key figure in 2024's college revivals nationwide, credits the miracle of technology in helping bring her vision to life.
One of the reasons it's possible is because of artificial intelligence. We're able to live translate in over 80 languages. And so we'll be able to sing one song together across the world. In the very beginning, when we started talking about this, people would say, "Are you sure that it's never been done before?" And because the technology's never existed, we were sure, besides Pentecost, when the very small amount of believers were gathered at one time in one place, it just hasn't been possible because of languages.
The support of other ministries also plays a major role.
We're partnering with YouVersion, the Bible app, Bible Project, Alpha, and then international ministries like East West and Campus Crusade for Christ, and all of these ministries that are just spread out all over the world. They have reach everywhere. And so it really is possible because of our teammates and our friends. And then so many incredible people have offered their voice and leadership to this.
According to Allen, prayer remains the foundation for all planning as Gather 25 draws near.
When it's all said and done, this will be happening because groups of people have been going to the Lord and begging him to protect us, to allow this to happen, praying for this to happen.
Allen also shared her heart for the event.
My prayer is that many, many people would be saved because the church came together and worshiped God and repented, and our hearts were made right, and we were on mission together.
Charlene Aaron reporting. Still ahead, a new generation of bird enthusiasts. Next on Faith Nation.
Finally tonight, Jenna, are you a nature lover?
I like nature.
You like nature?
Yeah, I don't know that this is for me, but...
Well, a new generation is learning how to appreciate nature.
Yeah, it's all thanks to technology that takes bird watching to another level. Smart bird feeders are equipped with cameras that bring backyard bird watching indoors. Bird feeders like the Bird Buddy connect to the internet and notify users when birds are feeding, delivering close-up videos and photos of the birds. The idea behind the smart bird feeders is to help people connect with nature they might otherwise overlook.
I know my sister-in-law has one of these. She
Does
asked
she?
for it
Does
for
she love
Christmas.
it?
She loves it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, some people love birds. My husband's one of them.
I say it's for the birds.
Yeah. All right,
Thanks for watching.
Have a great night.
See you tomorrow.